Welcome to the Regulating AI Podcast. We are live at the Big Data AI Expo in London on February 6th. I am so excited to welcome Professor Anand Rao at the University of Mary Washington with me. Thank you so much and welcome to the Regulating AI Podcast.
Thank you so much, Sanjay. I've been looking forward to this.
Awesome. Professor, education has always been touted besides healthcare as an area of the maximum opportunity for AI to benefit. You have a lot of experience in there. So I want to talk about two aspects of education and maybe you can, give your input. And I've discussed this a lot with policymakers, lawmakers around the world. People always say that personalized education, just like you shouldn't be taught the same things as I should be because you probably are better in math, science, or whatever else. And so your aptitude will be different than mine, or you shouldn't be having the same medicines as I should. So how real is this perspective of personalized education? That would be the first question. And second would be, I would like to talk to you about the impact of AI on the workforce. Current students that you are currently teaching to get into the workforce, as well as existing workforce and reskilling that needs to happen. So if you can talk to our audience, it's a global audience, policymakers, etc. So please.
Sure thing, Sanjay. Some really important points about AI in education. And to start with, that idea of personalization within education is such a tremendous opportunity. There was a really wonderful study done by the World Bank Africa recently where they were exploring the use of personalized AI tutor bots within a group of students, I believe in Nigeria, that during a 6-week period, they were able to jump almost 2 years worth of instruction because of that personalized work. Really astonishing work. Now, that offers some great opportunities as long as we are able to provide students with safe platforms and
for our audience, please just explain to them what a potential personalized education model will look like. And there's obviously language implication because AI allows you to do instant translations, etc. So you're democratizing it for globally. So please tell our audience.
Sure. Well, let me start with an example that might come from my own field, communication.
Sure.
So most students around the world have taken a public speaking class. That's one of the greatest fears, is speaking in front of a public audience. And for a number of years, I ran our speaking center where students could come in and receive tutoring from other students about how to prepare for their presentation. Now, limited resources, you only have so many tutors, only so many hours that are available. Well, we've been experimenting with using some chatbots where a student could take their topic idea for a paper, for instance, use the chatbot to help develop that idea into a speech topic, develop that into an outline for their speech. And then I even was talking with a colleague at George Mason University who has developed a platform where students can present that speech to an AI bot, and it can orally engage with them. It can discuss it with them. It can give them immediate feedback about how engaging they were, about the content that they've developed. And it can provide them much of the same experience they would have if they went and talked to a tutor in the speaking center. Now, that shouldn't replace meeting with the tutor or with the instructor, but having that as the first run, when students do go to the speaking center or when they come and talk to me in office hours, they're not starting at zero. They've already jumped up that learning curve substantially because they've already gotten feedback about the content. They've already found out, how's my eye contact? How well am I modulating? Am I monotone? They're just better speakers by the time they're able to come and speak with me, assuming they're still within that traditional model. Now, there are lots of other examples where students working on something for, let's say mathematics, for instance, is a great example of this. I have a daughter who's in high school and she's very proficient at mathematics and she really enjoys studying mathematics, but she also experiences what everybody else experiences in the classroom. Not everyone's at the same stage. Not everybody has the same understanding of those problems. So if you have a teacher in front of the class with 25 students, is pretty typical in an American high school, they have to find a common place to be able to talk about those problems. And some students will be a little behind, some will be a little ahead. Not the most efficient ways of helping individual students. When they're able to work with the chatbot, that chatbot can then see, okay, the student performed well in this problem. We can move on to the next problem. Oh, they're having difficulty with this. We can see exactly why they made that mistake. Talk about that. Maybe answer the questions about how they could solve this a little bit better. And then they could really do what Khan Academy was trying to do years ago with flipping the classroom, where students could do a lot of individualized work, then come together and get the general instruction they might be able to get from an instructor in the classroom. With AI chatbots, we're able to jump ahead quite substantially. Students are able to do a lot of that individualized instruction, and they can move ahead substantially. Now, the challenge, I think, will be motivation. I think students haven't been in a model yet where they've been able to drive their own education that way. It's going to take a little while for them to adapt. But I think for students starting off with personalized instruction, it's just like working with a tutor in a private tutoring setting. You'll be able to see students will be able to jump ahead quite remarkably.
So, Professor Rao, this is fascinating. So what you're saying is you gave first an example of the public speaking. Maybe I'm going to pull up that chat box myself, podcast speaking, so to speak. Think the scale of it could be incredible. That you could have tens of thousands of people using that chat box.
Absolutely.
So, and then you're saying is you took your daughter's example. There is a chat box. There is no history that you're putting in of your grades or anything like that. It's just learning on the fly, or is there a history that it takes of the chat box? Or is that something that could be potentially be done?
I think that's something that could be done. So if you are incorporating that chatbot into the classroom, you might include the grades, you might have it do assessments, you might have some personal information there if it's done in a safe way, but that's not even necessary. I mean, I know that some students are able to go and use something like ChatGPT for personalized instruction when they're stuck on a problem on homework, not to get the answer, but to find out how to get to that answer, how to get that instruction so they can better prepare for the test or be able to prepare for coursework.
So what you're saying is it could be done. Now, do you think, Professor, if it's giving them the answers, do you think it's stopping them from the thinking process, or it's helping them in the thinking process?
I think that's certainly a risk, and that's a danger. And a lot of my colleagues, I join with them with the concern that how do we assess student work? If traditionally we've done that with homework that they've done on their own, they bring in, they write a paper and they bring it in. Well, now we don't know. Did a chatbot write that for them? Did they just get the answers easily from a chatbot? I think the potential is there for students that are taught how to use it appropriately, that it will enhance their learning. It'll help them learn better. It'll be able to develop their critical thinking skills. Part of it is dependent upon teaching them how to use these chatbots responsibly. What does academic integrity mean in the age of AI chatbots? Giving them the tools that will not just give them the answer, but be able to guide them to develop that answer. But one of the approaches that some colleagues and I have taken is that maybe what we should be doing is really doubling down on some of the skills that we've for centuries been saying are important for students to develop: those communication skills, critical thinking skills, collaboration skills, research skills. How do we assess those skills effectively now? Now, the model of analyzing papers, students certainly need to learn how to write. They need to be able to develop those skill sets. But how do I know if a student wrote that paper themselves? Well, in my classes, they give a presentation on that paper and they handle a Q&A session afterwards. If they didn't write the paper, there's no way they're going to handle that Q&A session.
That's true.
Even better, some colleagues and I have been advocating for and developing an augmented debate-centered model of instruction, where we've been using debate in class for years. And it's a great way to demonstrate that students can think critically, to be able to engage with ideas, and to be able to test those ideas in a really productive way. We've always used debates. Now we can use debates to make sure that students really did do the work. They understand the research. They know how to apply it. And if anybody's ever gone through an in-class debate, they know just how challenging that can be. Now, what I love about that is it's not only answering some of the concerns about assessment in an AI world, because we are worried about that. We want to make sure students aren't looking for shortcuts. And for the most part, I don't think students are. They're trying to find a way to be the most productive and to be able to get the most out of their education. What's really great about this model is that it prepares them for the real world. When we're thinking about an AI world where they're going to have to be able to use AI in the workplace, we aren't going to be telling them in the classroom, no AI at all, because they're going to have to learn how to use it responsibly. This teaches them how to use it so they can better prepare content, develop their ideas, research those ideas, advocate for them, and test them in different ways. So when I have students in my argumentation class, I teach them how to use Perplexity and ChatGPT and Claude and other AI models. And I say, I want you to use them fully. And when you're using them, it's not just to write that first speech, but What are you going to do when Sanjay's asking you questions in cross-examination? So ask the chatbot, come up with some sample questions. If you're not sure how to answer their question, ask the chatbot for a little bit of help. Come up with counter arguments, figure out how to defend your arguments against those counter arguments. And when they're able to do that, they start moving ahead quite rapidly in terms of understanding how to think critically, how to apply those ideas. And I find that that's really an example where students are able to take AI tools and to be able to jump ahead radically in their education. And it's something that in the old days probably would have taken, when I was a student back in the 80s, would have taken a long time before a student was really ready to get ready for that debate. You'd have to go to the library and find hard copies of publications.
Yeah.
Now they have that at the touch of a finger. They can find it easily, they can apply it immediately, and they can jump ahead on that learning curve really rapidly.
Some fascinating points. So, Professor Rao, I mean, you are obviously, I have a feeling you are an exception. Do teachers, educators also have to start thinking differently in terms of how to teach these students? Do the skills that we expect from the students also, as you said, need to be different, whether they need to be collaborative skills, debating skills, prompt engineering skills, reasoning skills?
Mhm.
Is
Sure,
there
no.
a change in paradigm on both sides?
There is a bit of a change there. And I think what's been overwhelming to most educators is that when they start to think about AI, when ChatGPT came out in November 22,
Mhm.
and they're worried, they're unsure, but it doesn't mean I have to get rid of all of my assignments. I have to get rid of all the class lesson plans that I had. I think the answer to that is that you don't have to change everything that you've been doing. You already, as an instructor, have developed this expertise. Students
Mhm.
still need to learn that content. They still need to
Yeah.
learn how to apply that content in important ways. Luckily, I'm at a liberal arts institution, and what a liberal arts institution has always been very proficient at is having a broad-based education where students are thinking in an interdisciplinary way while building those skills we were talking about:
Mhm.
critical thinking, communication,
Right.
research, collaboration. All of those are the skills that most writers are now saying are going to be important in an AI world. So
Mhm.
I don't think it's about throwing it all out and starting fresh. I think it's about figuring out how to tweak it a little bit, pivot a little bit, so that we can incorporate AI literacy. You know, at our school, we have one of our graduation requirements for years has been digital literacy and understanding about the use of digital
Mm.
tools. And we're incorporating AI literacy into that graduation
No.
requirement. The other aspect of this that I think is really intriguing to me is that one thing that we've known for a long time, for generations, is that a liberal arts education prepares students not just for their first job, but most importantly for the job they'll probably have 10, 15 the road when they're a
Yeah.
leader in their field. We're preparing them to supervise, to be able to think broadly about their field and their discipline. Well, that's what we're going to need to be able to do in an AI world, because students no longer have to do that very base level work. There was a really great study that I read recently that talked about how cognitively, when we engage with AI tools, especially getting into agentic AI,
Mhm.
we're no longer just doing basic, efficiency work. We're now starting to supervise the AI agents.
Yeah.
So what we're really doing is we need to prepare our students. I need to prepare my students
Mhm.
so that their first job, they're ready to serve as a supervisor. They're
Sure.
supervising AI agents to be able to do a lot of the work that maybe previous generations had to be able to do for 10 or 15, 20 years before they were in that supervisory role.
Yeah.
I think this is another way where liberal arts education comes back to what we were founded for, what we've always been able to do well, with a little bit of a tweak and a little bit more incorporating of AI literacy. I think we can better prepare students for this AI world than really any other approach.
I think what I'm gathering from you, Professor Rao, is that probably liberal arts education is going to become a very, very important moving into the future. I know the
Absolutely.
past 10, 20 years, it's been about STEM, STEM, STEM. I think this is the liberal arts time that has come in because of the skills you just talked about. Because as you said, these kids are going to come out day one supervising, could be one, two, three agents. And
Right.
these are, as somebody recently, I think Mark Benioff of Salesforce, somebody said this is going to be the first generation that'll be supervising humans and AI agents.
Mhm.
So that's, I think, a very important point you made. Finally, Professor Rao, we've talked about students coming out, but there is an entire workforce that's sitting out there
Yeah.
that's going to have a major transformation. Well, is not going to, is having major transformation. We see it in coding jobs. We see it in customer
Right.
support jobs, etc. What there is a reskilling aspect to it. What is the role of education? Because policymakers are worried if there's major transformation when McKinsey, IMF talk about 60% white collar jobs or 30%, 40%. What are your thoughts as an educationist of these tens of millions of jobs that are out there waiting kind of to be reskilled?
Yeah, it's an important question. Not an easy one to answer. It's one that
Mhm.
I'm starting to work with colleagues in my field and the university, as well as with business leaders in the region.
Mhm.
I've been running some workshops for small businesses, for
Mhm.
instance, and doing some for some different offices to work on AI literacy. So there's an understanding, a foundation
Mhm.
of understanding about what these tools might be able to provide. But the other aspect of this that is so challenging is that the AI workforce, that the field of AI is changing so rapidly.
Yeah.
We have daily new updates
Yeah.
of different types of things, like OpenAI's deep research just came
Yep.
out. You had DeepSeek recently. All of these have profound implications for the kind of work that we'll be doing in the workforce.
Notebook LLM, which will make people like me obsolete. But sorry,
That podcast feature is pretty fantastic, isn't
yes,
it? Yeah, yeah.
unbelievable. Yeah.
But you're right. It changes so rapidly. I think what we really need to be able to do is to teach some flexibility, and that flexibility is going to be key to think about not only what are the challenges, but what are the opportunities. You know, when we have something like Notebook LM is a great example of that. I was showing that to a group of high school students to say, you know, if you're getting ready for a test, maybe a good way to review after you've already done the reading, you've done the assignments. Have Notebook LM produce a podcast that tells you about some of the ways you can go about this. I had a student getting ready for a presentation. They gave specific instructions in Notebook LM. Help me prepare for the presentation. Give me some advice about how to prepare this content to this audience. Gave great advice. It was excellent. Now, it's probably not enough to take the place of a traditional education, but as a supplement, as a complement, what we're doing, I think it's tremendous. Yeah.
Well, you're in the middle of some incredible changes, and Professor, some great insights. I mean, I wish I have a zillion questions for you, but to be continued. Thanks so much for being here, and we'll continue the discussion. And I'm sure our listeners really appreciate your comments. Thanks so
Absolutely.
much.
Thank you so much, Sanjay.
Thank you.
Take care.